While clone versions of classic systems are not a new thing by any stretch, I think we can all agree that Nintendo's NES Classic Mini kicks off a massive new gold rush for companies repackaging their old games into smaller, tinier plastic forms. Since then, Nintendo has released the SNES Classic Mini, and there have even been plenty of rumblings to suggest that more is coming from Nintendo. So that got me thinking, what awesome artifacts from Nintendo's past could possibly be recreated for modern audiences? I've been brainstorming, and these are just some of the ideas that I've come up with, which will probably never ever happen, but wouldn't that be nice? So an obvious choice would have to be a brand new version of the world's favourite handheld, the original Game Boy. At the time of the little grey block's release, it was already using outdated hardware in a bid to keep the price down, so it wouldn't be too difficult to make a new version that holds that design philosophy. Now, there is no reason why Nintendo couldn't offer a scale replica of the original Game Boy or even its improved pocket editions, but there is one thing that most definitely needs to change: that blurry green hued screen. Let's replace that old-fashioned screen with a proper backlit and biverted version, like the type modders currently use in their modded Game Boy systems. Or how about using a modern LCD or even an OLED screen, but offer different emulation filters to mimic the original dot matrix display with green or black colours, as well as a few user configurable colours that the later Game Boy editions had, and of course a simple emulated and filtered screen. So let's get some of the system's best games on there as well. Your Super Mario Land, your Link's Awakening, Wario Land, and of course you have to get Tetris on there as well. And while we're at it, why not have a couple of Pokemon games as well, and also add some sort of wireless link capability for trading and multiplayer modes. Or let's go a bit further and add Game Boy Color support as well, like the two Legend of Zelda Oracles games. Wouldn't that be great? Look, most of us know what the Robot Operating Buddy or ROB is. We've had an NES Classic Mini, so why not manufacture a tiny working replica of its most famous peripheral? And no, I do not mean the Power Glove. Not only would it work as an excellent display piece, but it would be a really cool addition to the existing Nintendo Classic Mini system. Granted that there weren't many games released for the ROB, but it would just be awesome to have a tiny little ROB figure that didn't cost an arm and a leg and actually did something. Considering we know him more as a cameo character in series like Smash Brothers, Star Fox and of course Mario Kart, he's even had 2 different amiibo figures, so it's about time that he had some sort of meaningful comeback. So why not now in the form of a ROB Classic Mini? So I've already mentioned a Game Boy Classic Mini, but why doesn't Nintendo go back even further and release a whole new range of Classic Minis celebrating its range of Game & Watch LCD handhelds? Granted, Nintendo has not been shy of making new versions of Game & Watch games, either in physical form or in compilations in terms of software. But wouldn't it be great to have just a single Game & Watch handheld that just played them all? Much like my proposed Game Boy Classic Mini, it could be a cheap handheld with a modern screen and the facility to play most, if not all, of the Game & Watch library. Nintendo could even add some sort of digital museum that had more information about these classic games. And of course, it wouldn't be Game & Watch without a clock, so how about making it a mini alarm clock as well? These old LCD games are still quite fun, and there are definitely plenty of gamers and non-gamers my age that played one of these devices at some point or another. So Game & Watch definitely deserves some sort of comeback. We've already seen classic games like Donkey Kong appear via the Nintendo Classic Mini, but wouldn't it be even better if we could play the original arcade versions? Sure, we've started to see classic Nintendo arcade games pop up on the Nintendo Switch as part of the Arcade Archives branding, but as we're beginning to see tiny arcade cabinets like the Data East Collection and Rampage pop up, I'd love for Nintendo to release their own tiny range of classic arcade cabinet replicas that are also playable. Now, good quality scale replicas of Nintendo's arcades would look great on anyone's shelf, and despite all the remakes of Nintendo's console games, we rarely see authentic ports of their arcade output. And that's a shame, because these releases do have a great deal of importance in Nintendo's history, especially considering we're more familiar with the NES ports of many of these cabinets. So finally, I want Nintendo to go even further back and celebrate more of their history. The history they had before Mario, even before Donkey Kong. They've been creating non-electronic products since the 19th century, from laminated cards for the traditional Japanese game Hanafuda to all sorts of plastic toys, even their own version of Lego. So why not come back to these weird and wonderful toys? How about a new version of the classic beam gun, the inspiration behind the NES Zapper? There's the Ultra Hand, a weird extendable hand that was created by the father of the Game Boy, Gunpei Yokoi. These weird and wonderful pieces are an important part of Nintendo, something the company itself remembers as they occasionally find themselves referencing and cameoing in some of their games like the WarioWare series. And honestly, what could be more retro than toys from the 70s, eh? This is just a handful of ideas that I would love to see happen in real life, even though they probably won't. But I hope you agree with my selections, but I also want to hear yours. And let's not limit this discussion to Nintendo systems. Why don't you share your ideas for cool classic editions of retro consoles or hardware in the comments below, because honestly I'd love to hear some of your suggestions. I will be back very soon with some more gaming goodness, so please slam that subscribe button as hard as you possibly can, but not too hard, and share this video with all of your friends, whether they like video games or not. Take care and happy gaming.